Welcome to this week's Fowl Friday Tip of the Week, brought to you by HP Outdoors. Here's your hosts, Josh Palm and Dan Harushka.
Hey guys, it's Josh and Dan, and we're here with another Fowl Friday Quick Tip of the Week. So it's Friday morning, you're listening to your quick tip, and then you go to check your phone and see what the weather's going to be like for your hunt tomorrow morning. Well, today we're going to give you a few tips to keep in mind, depending on the type of weather conditions that you're going to see. The first tip that we're going to talk about is going to be if you're dealing with sunshine. Lots of sun, no clouds. Basically, the benefit to this type of scenario is that your decoys are going to be very visible to ducks and geese in the air. Another really big benefit is that, the sun being up is going to create shadows, and that's awesome opportunities for you to hide and just add to your concealment. A lot of guys think that, the best duck hunting happens in quote unquote, the ducky weather and the overcast and the poor weather and that kind of stuff. For me, give me high sun all day long because, it allows me to stay hidden better and, allows my decoy spread to really stand out. One of the negatives that you're going to deal with a high sun is you're going to have a lot of high flyers that are going to be challenging to deal with. And, depending on how warm it is, right now we're unseasonably warm. We're talking, they're forecasting 70 degrees here in Virginia this weekend. When you got conditions like that, birds are not forced to eat. They're not forced to, fly, and they can just kind of hang out and loaf really all day. So it can really sort of put a damper on the flight, but something that you got to overcome there. Also, when you're talking, no cloud cover and depending on the wind and stuff like that, your calling is going to travel further. So it's really important that you're hitting the right notes and that you're kind of on with your calls and you're not just kind of calling sort of indiscretionally, kind of situations. You want to make sure that if you're going to put the call to your mouth, it's because you have an intent, you know exactly what you're going to do with it. So keep that stuff in mind when you're dealing with, the high sun and the sunshine days. If you're going to be dealing with some cloudy conditions, this one is sort of the polar opposite of what the sunshine does. Your movements are going to be magnified. You don't have those shadows. Things are going to be, you're going to be exposed. So you're going to need to double your concealment on the ground. Brush your blind a little tighter. You got ducks circling. You want to hold real still. Make sure you're covered up good because all of your movement is going to be much easier for the ducks to see. As far as the overcast days themselves, they create sort of this flat gray appearance across the landscape. So it really does pay to kind of mix up your decoy spread a little bit and add some variety so that you might get a little more pop. Add some widgeon, some pintail, something like that that's going to create a little more pop and help you stand out a little bit better on those cloudy days that can be very, very challenging. Although most of us, traditionally would think, those ducky days, that a lot of that involves cloud cover, but that can create some of the biggest challenges that you'll face as a waterfowl hunter. What about some other conditions, Dan?
We're not hitting it in this area, but a couple areas actually are seeing a freeze, but I'm talking a deep, deep freeze. And we talked about it before, but you don't always have to get up at the 4 a.m. or 3 a.m. and get out to your spot. If there's a deep freeze, a lot of the action starts around 9 a.m. So if they're trying to conserve energy and they're not trying to move around, you don't need to be out there that early as well. Also, a big tip would be kicking birds up after light. They're going to keep the water open. If you get to the spot at 4 in the morning and you kick the birds off, you're going to have to deal with keeping that water open until they return. And that, in a very cold situation, might be pretty challenging. So that's something to think about. Also, when it gets cold, think about carbs. And what I mean is check cornfields because geese and ducks will be frequenting them very, very much. And that's something with all animals when they're trying to keep energy going. Another situation would be high wind. In high wind, the calling doesn't do so much. So you want to have a visible decoy spread. And this is something that's a little bit debatable, but it might be a good idea to put a spinner out. You're going to have a lot of motion in your spread already, but this might be something instead of calling that you're going to have some flash on the wings that might be able to draw in some birds that might not see just the regular, your regular decoy spread on the water. Also, if you're hunting big water, get behind points and, that jet way out and find flat water. Also, if you do put decoys out, put them near the shore or on the bank. And I actually verified this today. I went out to our local lake, and there were birds swimming all around the shore, a bunch of mallards, and I wanted to be out there, but I had to make it back to work. Also, snow. One of my favorite times of the year is when we have snow and we're in cornfields. One of the first things that we do when we're setting our spread is we kick up the snow, put our decoy spread out, and what that does, it makes it look like the birds have found food, and that is living day to day, just trying to survive. The birds want to be there. And make sure that you keep your decoys tight. In the wintertime, they want to huddle up. And also, don't forget the shells. We talked about it on prior episodes, but when you watch geese out in a field, they'll lay down, they melt the snow, they eat, and they keep moving. So don't be afraid to put shells out in your decoy spread.
So the one thing you can't control as a duck hunter is the weather. So the best thing you can do is to prepare for the various situations and give yourself the best opportunity to be successful. So remember these tips this weekend as you head out and you give it a shot.
Looking for more waterfowl hunting tips and techniques? Visit hpoutdoors.com or subscribe to the HP Outdoors Waterfowl podcast on iTunes.